Today, it is time to make our friend Sharla in D&D 5th edition. I'm pretty sure me saying, yeah, she's probably going to be the last one people vote to do, in pretty much every previous video in the series, caused the patrons to finally vote her over Ricky this time, so, hey, what are you going to do? But there are some implicit spoilers here, as well as on her character sheets, which I, as always, will be providing at 1st, 5th, 10th, and 20th levels. So, watch at your own risk. Definitive Edition is coming. I wouldn't recommend getting yourself spoiled in 2019 for the remaster coming out in 2020 if you haven't played the original. Let's jump right into things. What do we want her to be able to do? Well, shoot a gun, have a ton of support magic with a heavy emphasis on healing, a little bit of elemental damage, and the ability to do a couple infrequent but devastating weapon attacks. Obviously, based on this, if you know D&D, or if you know RPG classes in general, you will see that her main class is going to be Cleric. For her race, I will be going with a variant human for one very specific and interesting reason you'll find out soon enough, and for background, I'll take Soldier. It honestly doesn't give her anything that would be very helpful for her, but none of the backgrounds really mesh with what she is, besides this one, and yeah, that's basically it. We've seen this background multiple times before, so I don't see the need to go over it again. For ability scores, as always, I'm using the standard array, as opposed to point buy or rolling for stats, just to keep everyone in the party basically equal in that regard. So, I put the 8 in strength for the -1. Actually, Sharla probably has a positive strength modifier because of her military training and just being able to lug that gun around, but I had to dump something, and this is the least useful to anything she actually has, and wouldn't directly impact her character, but the soldier background does give her proficiency in athletics, so that will at least somewhat make up for that. For dexterity, 13 plus 1 from variant human for plus 2. It's gonna be the stat she uses to shoot ranged weapons, so this is kind of a given. For Con, I put the 10 for plus 0. She doesn't have a particularly high amount of HP, and this will keep things that way. For Intelligence, I put 12 for plus 1, because compared to Rhine, she's much more intelligent, but compared to Shulk, she isn't very intelligent, and just based on being older, I'd also put her over a couple of the other characters who aren't as mature as she is. 15 plus 1 with my other variant human stat boost into Wisdom for a plus 3, because Wisdom is the main stat of Clerics. And then I put the other 14 into Charisma. Obviously, the 13 plus 1 and the 14 can be flip-flopped. I don't know, I just feel like she'd have a relatively high Charisma compared to other characters. This might be equal to Dunban's, which is probably a mistake, but I wouldn't put her with a negative Charisma, but you might want to swap around Strength, Con, Int, and Cha just to get her a positive strength mod, but without screwing her con over. It might be possible to make these stats a bit better, but Dex and Wisdom are exactly where I want them to be. Weapon-wise, I would normally make a concession in game accuracy to stick with by-the-book 5e accuracy and give her a crossbow as a main weapon to represent a gun, but I'm going to make another executive decision, like I did in the previous episode, to go a little bit off-book for this one. TLDR, her variant human feat is going to be Matt Mercer's Firearms Specialist Homebrew, and her weapon will be the musket from the same homebrew set. If you're watching this and somehow haven't heard of Matt Mercer, Lao Huang, or Critical Role, the voice actor for a character in Xenoblade X who is a sniper is just a generally well-known and well-liked voice actor in the anime and game dubbing community, and is also the dungeon master of one of the most popular D&D shows of all time. One of the characters in the first campaign of the show was a custom fighter subclass that used guns, and he actually published the information for the subclass in addition to a feat that makes non-gunslinger fighters good at firearms to the public for free on D&D Beyond, so basically I'm using that. I thought it was cool to bring in a Xenoblade alum to help fully realize an actual Xenoblade character in 5e. So, firearms work slightly different than other weapons. They have a reload timer, basically, so they have a chamber size, and once you empty the chamber, you have to spend one attack action or one attack in a multi-attack action to reload the weapon and shoot again. It also has a misfire score, where if you roll really badly on the d20, the gun will misfire, and you'll need to spend some time to fix it. I only gave her one gun on the character sheet, but she'd probably have a melee weapon, a crossbow, and at least one other gun. Obviously, Xenoblade 1 characters only use one weapon, so in terms of Xenoblade accuracy, I did that. Otherwise, she will get proficiency in athletics and intimidation from background. Medicine and persuasion fit her best out of the cleric proficiency options. She also gets wisdom and charisma saves, and light and medium armor, plus shields and simple weapons from class, plus proficiency in firearms from the feat. Firearms are ranged weapons, so they are dex-based, which is why I gave her the higher dex. Clerics don't necessarily have to be devoted to a god if the DM wills it, even though they're very much described as being a pious class in the player's handbook and material, but DM overrules the book, and if it's in the Xenoblade 1 universe, they're most likely not in service to a god, and their powers just come from some other source, which in this case would be her just general knowledge of medicine and mastery of ether. For clerics, subclass takes effect at first level, so we're going to talk about this choice now. Clerics are not dedicated healers in D&D, but Life Domain is the domain, the subclass, that is far closest to being a dedicated heal bot, so we'll just go with that one. At first level, clerics get Spellcasting. They prepare spells after a long rest, like paladins do. So they actually have access to the entire cleric spell list, but only a limited number every rest. There are domain-based spells, but those are considered always prepared, not exclusive to the domain. So the only kind of spell for which a limited number is known is cantrips. I'll go over those when she learns them, and touch on a few spells at the end of the video that generally fit her abilities, instead of going through every single cleric spell in the book. She gets 3 cantrips at level 1. Sacred Flame is the bread and butter cleric attack cantrip. You might want to use this if the gun's jammed or you don't want to waste your action reloading it, because the gun I chose is a one shot in the chamber one. Spare the Dying prevents a knocked out character from having to make death saves. Not very useful in the long run, but it can be very good at lower levels when she doesn't have many slots for a healing spell, because obviously, if you have your action, and you have a healing spell, and you have a party member at 0 hit points, you're gonna just bring them back up, so not only are they not dead, but they can also attack and do things again. But if you're out of your 2 spell slot to get at level 1, there you go, you might as well stabilize them. And then Thaumaturgy is the cleric version of the basic parlor trick spell. Being a life cleric also grants the bonus proficiency of being good with heavy armor, so I guess she skill linked that over from Rhine. And also, you get Disciple of Life, which means her healing spells heal just a couple HP more, with an effect that scales with level, so hey, better healing. This already makes her a much better healer than anyone else we've seen so far. Second level, Channel Divinity. It's very similar to the Paladin one, where you get different effects based on your subclass, except clerics eventually get more uses of it per rest and have different abilities. All clerics get Turn Undead, where nearby undead have to make a saving throw, and if they fail, they're put into a special state where they're forced to flee. Undead don't really exist in Xenoblade 1, so you'd probably want it to be made into a more useful enemy type for the campaign, probably Construct, so that she has her own special unique ability for getting rid of Mechon. Life Cleric's special channel divinity is Preserve Life, which allows for healing of a nearby creature, and the amount that's healed scales with cleric level, but cannot bring it above half of its max HP. So, if you're out of spell slots, or you don't want to use a spell slot, or you just want to give someone a little bit, or just bump them up from being unconscious, you can use that. Third level, no new abilities, but first, second level spell slots. Fourth level, ability score or feat, bump wisdom up by 2 to get it as close to capped as you possibly can. Fifth level, third level spells, and Destroy Undead. Basically, at higher levels, weaker undead that fail the Turn Undead saving throw are instantly defeated. This is based on their challenge rating, which is an estimation of an enemy's strength based on how many can fight a party of a certain level. It's really inaccurate, but this is what's written into the ability, and the CR increases as your level increases. She'll also pick up a 4th cantrip. I took Guidance because it's a good assist spell to help with ability checks and can reference some of her support arts. But because I remembered to do it earlier this time, let's roll some dice.
I really hope you're ready for even more low-tech mode than usual with this thing, because I'm at home. I actually don't have a desk at home. So I'm just going to be rolling these onto my dirty carpet. Let's go. The cleric hit die is a d8. My goal was to have her at about the same amount of HP as Shulk has because I think they're relatively comparable in the actual game. So, I might have thought this out badly, but let's see. That was on the 2 before. Alright, there's an 8 and a 6 in there. It's not bad, except for the 1 and the 2. Okay, maybe it is bad.
6th level grants an additional channel divinity use in between rests, as well as the domain ability Blessed Healer. Healing spells she casts targeting others heal herself by the same amount of additional HP that Disciple of Life grants the target. There's no real basis in her own abilities here, but I guess this would mean that she has some RTL gems equipped. 7th level, nothing but 4th level spells. 8th level, ASI or Feat. Let's max out that wisdom to get her at really good clericing. I don't know. I don't have a joke for this one. She also gets Divine Strike, which one attack per turn she makes with a weapon can deal additional radiant damage. It's the wrong damage type, but I think this is more of a thunder bullet than a headshot to me. Also, at a later level, the damage increases to 2 dice instead of 1, which is always nice. 9th level, nothing but 5th level spell slots. 10th level, Divine Intervention. You can call on your god for aid, and if you succeed on a roll that gets marginally easier as you level up, you will get some sort of assistance as determined by your DM. This can only be used once a week. Obviously, there would be no actual divine intervention if this was a Xenoblade, so you can rule this as anything else useful happening if your cleric is a non-directly connected to the god type cleric. My vote would be Juju helping out in some way if you actually wanted to put this in a campaign. She'll also get her final cantrip, and I went with Light to provide light since most of this party lacks dark vision, and that's kind of important because, like, half of it is humans, and humans are kind of really bad sometimes. Anyway, let's roll dice.
Alright, same thing as last time, but with 1 extra die. And that is also kind of not great. I might not actually hit the same plateau as Shulk did, but oh well. I know people are like, no, don't roll for HP. It's fun. That's the point of it. It's fun.
11th level, 6th level spells, no new ability. 12th level, ASI or Feat. Feats don't benefit her to a huge amount, so I decided to bump up Dexterity here to help with Gun. 13th level, 7th level spells, nothing else. 14th level is probably the lamest here because it's just a CR boost to Destroy Undead and nothing else. 15th level, though, is 8th level spells. 16th level is another ASI or Feat, and I'm going to slightly retract what I said earlier, because Warcaster is still a pretty good feat for her. It gives her advantage on concentration checks to maintain concentration on her concentration spells, which is especially useful because those are con saves and she has no con bonus or proficiency. The downside, though, is that the other abilities it grants her, being able to use spells on an opportunity attack, or cast with your weapon as a spellcasting focus, aren't really useful for her because she isn't a melee fighter, and by level 16 she probably has a spellcasting focus, which you would use instead of the weapon. If you have a holy symbol and it's like around your neck or something, I'm pretty sure you don't have to actually touch it to use it as your focus. Anyway, 17th level, Supreme Healing. Any healing spell that requires you to roll more than 1 die in order to determine how much is healed now heals the maximum amount. And when coupled with her 9th level spells she gets at this level, she doesn't actually benefit very much from the last 3 cleric levels. So, at 18th level, we are going to multiclass to fighter. 3 fighter levels will actually get her right into range to get the benefits of the gunslinger subclass. Multiclassing gives proficiency in martial weapons that she didn't have before. A normal build would mix the fighter levels up in with the cleric ones, but for these purposes, we're just putting them after. This is how to make the character, not a build guide that you should ever consider following in an actual game. Remember how Shulk was a Hexblade? I made my own Hexblade for a campaign I just started the day I'm recording this, and I chose to do none of the things I had Shulk do. I also rolled much better on Charisma, so that's also part of it. Anyway, for fighting style, none of them besides defense actually help her, so I guess we're taking the additional AC when wearing armor. She also gets Second Wind, which Sure, it's a bonus action, which would make it useful, but in all reality, it pales completely in comparison to her super broken healing by now. 19th level, Action Surge, yippee-ki-yay, it's a good thing. And 20th level is where she gets her Gunslinger perks. First off, Gunsmith grants proficiency with Tinker's tools. These can be used to fix guns better or make ammo. She also gets Adept Marksman, which grants a new resource exclusive to the subclass called Grit Points, which can be used to perform trick shots. Basically, they're the equivalent of superiority dice to use on maneuvers, but for the Gunslinger. Grit, however, is based on your Wisdom modifier, so this is a surprisingly synergetic build. You also get 2 trick shots, which use Grit to do certain things. First is Dazing Shot. It has a Xenoblade mechanic in the name. Sharla can inflict this mechanic on enemies. The only difference between this and Headshaker is the fact that it is ranged with the gun and not melee. And then Violent Shot is her headshot. It has a massive chance of failing, but if pulled off properly, can deal 6d12 plus 3 piercing damage, plus 2d8 radiant damage in one shot with the specific gun I gave her, and keep in mind, by actual level 20, she would have some super ridiculous magic gun that would crank that up even more. And then let's roll some dice.
Alright, this is the last one where we've got the 7d8 mixed up with 3d10s for the 3 fighter levels, so can we redeem ourselves? Probably not. This is me we're talking about after all. I only have good luck when I'm rolling for ability scores on my own characters. Actually, this is pretty decent. I'm not complaining too much about this one. Only 2 1s out of the 10 dice, and considering it's d8s, that's still worse than you'd expect, but whatever.
Let's move on to quickly discussing some of her spells next. But don't worry, I'm sure this isn't the last we'll see of this subclass in future Xeno series D&D videos. Oh, hello, party member from the next game I want to cover on the series, who is a gun-toting actual priest with the same hair color as the character the subclass was originally designed for. Anyway, though, for spells, I will not be talking about most of them, but pretty much anything that heals HP, status effects of any kind, or resurrects the dead fits. I took her to 9th level spells, first off for the super uber healing buff that she gets from Supreme Healing, but also because Mass Heal is a 9th level cleric spell that can bring the entire party, as created in the series, almost all the way to full from 1 HP each, and very much represents a late game like a level 10 heal blast from a level 99 Sharla. In other news, Guiding Bolt is a bread and butter cleric spell that can also sort of be a thunderbolt. Protection from evil and good as well as Shield of Faith are pretty similar to some of her buff spells, and Warding Bond could sort of be like the tension mechanic. But yeah, honestly that's basically it. Tune in eventually for Ricky, and then tune in even later for me doing Xenogears. Honestly though, in addition to waiting until I get more Xenogears based viewers and more viewers in general and more people interested in the series, I kinda want to look for a mech based tabletop RPG so I could also make the characters mechs. Either that or just make mechs in D&D, which I don't think would go very well. But anyway, goodbye. And yeah, that's all I got for this video. Here's the normal thing I do where I have to pad out the end card because I want to thank my patrons. And thank you. Honestly, it's because of you guys that Sharla is the one in this video. I'm not going to say it's because of you guys that this video exists, because I am 100% not doing this for money, and making this video cost me nothing beyond things that I already own from my other videos and playing D&D as a hobby. But thank you anyway. Yeah, that's everything. Until next time, this is Luxin, signing off.